Myanmar becomes this miraculous transition from the most closed military dictatorship and military-dominated economy to a fledgling democracy, and signs agreement that ends, as I remember, 17 separate insurrectionary movements, but they don't do it with the Rohingya Muslims because they consider them basically like Eastern Europe thought about the gypsies, and sort of a lesser order of people, and they're scared to death they'll be destabilizing to their country, and the government doesn't stop the militant Buddhists who really destroyed every stereotype people had about Buddhists. And so people say, oh gosh, it's a failure. One of the things we've got to do if we're going to do this, in addition to have the right priorities, is develop a little stomach for spending time on things. Now keep in mind, we became a country in the late 1700s, and it took a civil war to abolish slavery. I mean, we have so much information so instantaneously today. We're used to quick fixes, and we're not organized for long hauls. And I think that's one of the things I would say. I still think it's a great thing that South Sudan was created, and that there are really good people there, and they want good things to happen. And it's perfectly understandable that they would have an ethnic fallout, regrettable, but the world has no real system so that any international institution could move in with them, if you will, and help working with them and keep working with them on a long-term, consistent basis. The same thing, when I went to Myanmar last year, the president asked me to go speak to the leaders of all these civil society groups and representatives of the various ethnic groups to urge the peace, to encourage those who'd signed their agreements with the government to keep them, and to encourage them to resolve their differences with the Rohingya. But they're all having a run again next time, and they know where the votes are. And right now, the votes in a democratic Myanmar are, if you will, on the separate, for continuing the conflict and circling the Rohingya area and not permitting it to be full participants in the future of Myanmar. I don't agree with that. But all I'm saying is when this stuff happens, people want to throw it there and say, well, that was a failure. It didn't work right away. And if that were the test, the United States would have been declared a failure several times a year between 1789 and 1861. Indeed, we'd have been more than halfway through the Civil War before anybody thought that we had a chance to amount to a hill of beans by today's standards. So